In case some of you don't realize this, I am exceedingly pleased to see the turnout to honor someone who certainly deserves the honor to be memorialized here today. I know that I've had an opportunity to get to know the general's wife in the last few months better than I'd ever had before, and I can tell you that I am so pleased to be able to have her experience what's going to happen today. So Drusilla, thank you so much for being here, and thank you especially for being able to organize so many members of your family to be here today. That's really truly awesome. Real quickly, and I'm going to speak, many of you will be happy to hear, I'm going to speak very shortly today, so you know where I come from. But I'm going to keep moving here and kind of hand it off to those that certainly deserve to have an opportunity to speak here. First of all, General Brooks served in the formation of the Fort Harrison Reuse Authority. The commissary right behind me, he had a tremendous amount to do with that. And as Drusilla said, that General Brooks didn't play poker, but he had a great poker face. And his ability to negotiate with the national government and get this commissary built is certainly a great tribute to him. A little bit of the background as to why we're here at Brooks Boulevard. About 2 months ago, Scott Salisbury and I schemed about how we could make this event happen. I cannot in any way properly express my gratitude and pride that the members of my team been able to pull together to produce such a nice celebration. We've been here since about 7:45 this morning putting this together. That's 2 months of planning. Among those joining us today, who you will soon hear, are Jeff Vest, current president of the FHRA, member of Indiana House of Representatives, John Bartlett, representative from Governor Holcomb's office will be Tyler Warman and Andrew Forrester, and Brigadier General J. Stewart Goodwin, and of course, Mrs. Drusilla Brooks. And now, Jeff, if you will come up and offer a few words.
Boy, it's not good being short. Hey, this is an honor. First off, the mayor and I, Dr. Smith, are old social studies teachers, and we tell stories if you're a history teacher, so I'll keep it to 5 minutes. I could keep it to an hour. I'm an old Lawrence boy. First off, I'm going to say it's great to see Ms. Brooks and so many family members, Representative Bartlett, Dr. Smith, honored guests, and just veterans, and the city of Lawrence coming out to celebrate. I'm an old Lawrence boy. I'll be 60 next year. Lawrence Elementary, Belzer, Lawrence Central, president, 25 years, City of Lawrence Parks Board. I'm in my 10th year in the Reuse Authority. Myself, Tom Crouch, many of you know, Don Ashcraft, Al Vandermeer, John Curtis. We all made up that first Reuse Authority back in 1995, and we literally, we didn't know our behind from third base at the time. We just know that Fort Harrison, all communities have an identity. Lawrence was known for its great schools. Tucked out here in Northeast Marion County, and we had an active military base. Since 1906, it went through all of America's conflicts, the Great War, World War II, Korean War. It was almost closed down at the end of World War II, but it was recommissioned as the Cold War got hotter. It stuck around in America's tragic war there in Vietnam. I grew up with those kids living over at Old Harrison Park that backed up to Community Park. It served as a repatriation center for individuals that chose an alternative route to conscription during the Vietnam War. It was called back into duty 1987. It housed the athletes. We're in the shadow of the old track training facility for the Pan American Games. And then in 1991, when the Cold War shifted its emphasis to the Middle East, Major General Brooks came on board and guided Fort Harrison through the Desert Storm. And if you guys remember some of the brown tanks and the brown military trucks that looked like the desert, they were kept out here. And General Brooks, though, he had an inkling that the old fort's days as an active base were numbered. And when it was announced by BRAC in 1991 that it was going to close, holy heck, hundreds of thousands of soldiers have come through here in 90 years, but it was also home to thousands of civilian workers, be it as support staff over Building 1. In beginning 1991, commissions met. Can we save the old fort? And then finally, it was 26 years ago yesterday, September 30th, 1995, Fort Bend was decommissioned. But we had a plan. General Brooks had a plan for our assets out here. We suddenly got stuff. Now, you military folks know that when the Army wants to build, the Army builds. It may make no sense. And we suddenly were given an asset, which at the time, Tom Crouch will vouch, we didn't think, what the heck was an asset? It's the old Gate Lords Hall where Ivy Tech is. We didn't want it. Okay? The old steam plant. You guys remember the old steam plant, some of the characteristics. We didn't want it. We had to come up with $2+ million to pay the federal government, and it'd take a heck of a bake sale to make that happen. General Brooks, though, realized when we were able to save Building 1 that that was going to be our major asset. And so he schemed up, and you're right, General Brooks may not have played poker, but holy heck, he was a humble man. He rented out space at the old Gates Lord Hall for, as Building 1 transitioned, 20% at a time. The government paid rent. And we handed out assets through public benefit transfers, but we also had assets. People live over on Lawton Loop, and we had to jump through the hoops of lead paint and historical standards, some of the strictest that you'll find on the military bases as they were closing. And today that gets us to where we're at. We're in the shadow. Our veterans worried that when the fort closed, where would they go for hospital care? More importantly, PX commissary, they'd had to go down to Dayton, Ohio. And instead, General Brooks, working with elected leaders, I'd like to be in a room with politicians and General Brooks. Okay? Very humble man. I'm a short guy. Everybody's big compared to me. But he, basketball player, he'd show up into a room and for some reason got the attention of everybody by saying very few words. And with his efforts, we get a commissary. His goal was to maintain historical presence of the military out here. We have an Army, Navy, Marine Reserve because of his vision out here. And as we move forward, and I am now the current president of the Fort Harrison Reuse Authority. I serve with Mr. Jason Fenwick. We have a great executive director, Letha Dunstan. Miss Heather Milliken's out here. I've worked with her in the past. Take a time and drive through the old fort today if you haven't done so. We have groundbreaking that's going to break with the library coming up next year. Yes, we have a true hotel that will come online. And with the efforts of Mayor Collier, you're going to see a civic plaza. We're going to break ground on that in the spring. And if you get a chance, wander over to the cultural campus. Any of you who've lived in Lawrence, like I have, Coach Reeser, Mayor Collier, our whole life, we never tied the words art and culture with Lawrence. Okay? $5.5 million Lilly Endowment investment was put into that cultural campus. You get a chance, go in, say hi to Miss Judy Byron, and enjoy those amenities. And that's not, residential, recreation, business opportunities. That is what General Brooks envisioned for the old fort. And I hope, Ms. Brooks, we've done you fine and have made the old general happy. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the day.
You see why I'm proud to call Jeff Best one of my colleagues. He was a teacher, but I think he was also maybe a salesman in a past life. So thank you, Jeff, for those words. It is now my great honor to introduce to you the Honorable State Representative John Bartlett.
Good morning. It's truly an honor to stand here to recognize the General for his work and all the folk who served in the military. Thank you. Let's give them a hand. And Mayor Collier and Jeff and Dr. Smith are educators, and we ought to give them a hand as well. Did not have the pleasure of knowing General Brooks, but I do know that had not been for our military, we would not be able to have meetings like this knowing full well that we're safe. Our military made that happen, and they continue to make that happen, and for that I'm very grateful. With General Brooks's vision to keep this a viable place, we also have on Fort area the Indiana Military Veterans Hall of Fame, and we opened in April 18, brand new building, didn't spend a dime of taxpayer money, and it's completely paid for thanks to the credit unions. Yes. That's at 52, I believe, 60 Herbert Lord Road. Right across from the DFAS parking lot is your Indiana Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And when we opened that, there were only 8 states to have a Military Veterans Hall of Fame. I think we were the 8th or the 9th. But we were the only one to have a freestanding building completely paid for. And that goes along with General Brooks's vision, and I'm thankful to be a part of that. Today, I would just like to say to Mrs. Brooks, thank you for your husband's service, and thank you because when the spouse serves, you do too. So we thank you for that, and thank you for coming out. And I also bring greetings from the 122nd General Assembly, and I should have done this first. The 122nd General Assembly, where Todd Houston is the Speaker, and Phil Giaquina is the Minority Leader. So thank you and have a wonderful day.
John's a pretty busy guy right now, so John, thank you so much for taking the time to be out here today. Next up, representing Governor Eric Holcomb, Andrew Forster.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Andrew Forster. I am Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for Governor Eric Holcomb. I want to welcome you on behalf of Governor Holcomb. Thank you all for being here for this wonderful day, beautiful weather, and a great occasion. And I especially want to thank Mayor Collier and the entire City of Lawrence team for all of their hard work that they take as public servants in making this happen and so much else here in the city. There are many people who do good things with their limited time on this earth, but there are very few that raise the bar and go above and beyond the call of duty in service to their country and to their community. Today, we get to honor one of those people who made an unmistakable and lasting impact for his country and his community, Major General Ronald E. Brooks. Though this was not his place of birth, he loved and served it well even after his official retirement, and he left Lawrence and the entire Indianapolis region better as a place of economic opportunity, community, and recreation. And in dedicating this memorial today, it is Governor Holcomb's hope, and mine as well, that it not only honors a man deserving of such recognition, but that it shines a bright light on his example of servant leadership as one that we all might emulate. Thank you very much.
It is now my great honor to introduce and bring him up to the dais, Brigadier General J. Stewart Goodwin, who knew General Brooks quite well.
Major General Ron Brooks was one of the finest men I ever had the privilege to meet. His dedication to God and country, combined with taking care of service members and their families, was above reproach. Your first impression of him may have mistakenly been influenced by his southern drawl and his conservative approach to solving problems. But you soon learned that he understood life is not a sprint, but a marathon. For 21 years, I was the Director of Safety and Occupational Health for the Fort Benjamin Harrison installation that approximately 18,000 military and civilians occupying 300 buildings called home, and I had served under 3 previous post commanders. I was also one of the last members of the BRAC team to close down the fort. General Brooks is what I called a field general, meaning he spent more time in the field than he did in his office. Other post commanders were concerned about the safety of the troops and infrastructure, but not anywhere close to the detail that General Brooks was involved. His demeanor was filled with compassion and fact-finding. And the fact is that he was involved on just about every level. A lot of generals, and believe me, having been one for a number of years, have a tendency to focus on one thing. General Brooks was not like that. He was interested in all aspects of the mission. Another example of his tenacity and impact on the community that's already been spoken about was his monumental effort to secure the commissary and PX following the closing of the fort. We will never know how this decision favorably impacted service members and their families, but believe me, those who use the facilities know full well and are very grateful. I want to share something with you today that I've never said in public. It was approximately 6 months or so after he took command, and one day in his office, he told me he trusted me, and that the safety of the soldiers and civilians at Fort Harrison were his top priority. That day established a bond that would last for many decades. Following his retirement, we stayed in contact, working veterans issues and establishing a true friendship. I believe he always was a mentor to me when we were at the fort. But when I became a general officer, I learned that there is an amazing network among the officers, officer corps, and he began to share his experiences and lessons learned. And this is something that I cherish very much. I can't tell you the number of situations in my time as a general officer that I heard his voice when it comes to making a decision. He made me a better senior leader, and I am forever in his debt. Major General Ron Brooks was a warrior, national and community statesman, an impactful leader, and a friend to many of us. He was the absolute right person at the right time to close this historic post and prepare it for the future. I believe the most important thing we can do in our lives is to make a difference and leave this world better than when we arrived. The General fully exceeded that goal, and we are all better to have known him. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you, General Goodwin. I truly appreciate that. It's now my great honor to be able to bring to the dais here someone who I've gotten to know quite a bit better in the last couple of months. She is a treasure, certainly a treasure for the city of Lawrence, certainly a treasure for the nation. But I suppose there's no better tribute to a mom and a dad than the family that Mr. and Mrs. Brooks were able to put together. General Brooks and his wife Drusilla, who I've been told was the boss all along, have raised a great family. And you can see many of them here with us today. So Drusilla, I'd love to have you come here and say a few words.
Thank you so much. I wasn't going to get emotional because of what I had to say, but all the good things that I've heard people say about my husband and their father. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank the Lord for the weather today. It's a good day. I want to thank another police escort. We had a police escort here when Mayor. Oh, I thought everybody could hear me. So the mayor said there would be a police escort available. A couple of my kids didn't want one. And I said, that won't be necessary, on my way over. And then Chief Hoffman said, I said, well, okay, because maybe some in my neighborhood don't know my family, and maybe it'll get a little excitement going on in the neighborhood. All those blue lights and things. I expect to see it on newsfeed on neighborhood app soon. But it is good. It is a great day, and I just thank you all for friends, Mayor Collier, the City Council, all the people involved in this today. I have to confess that when Mayor Collier told me about this, my son had already been here with his family. He was going to have to come back from New York. That's my oldest son, Richard. And I said, it's probably it's probably not that big a deal. So if you don't have time to come back, you know, and so as it started going, I called him. I said, I think it's going to be a big deal. So he's here today with one of my granddaughters, Jane. My son, Mark, is here with one of my granddaughters, and his wife Jill, and granddaughter Cassie, and my son Edward is here, and I have a niece here, 2 nieces here, and it's just a great day. And I so appreciate everything that people said about my husband, and I do say it's true. He was a humble man, and I do say over and over again that he actually did know how to play poker, although he didn't. But when this all began to happen, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to tell you why it means so much to my family to have this today. That he lost my train of thought. That's why I have a lot of notes here. But when we did know that base closure was going to happen, there were 2 things that he utmost in his heart and mind was to take care of the people who were here, who were going to have to move, have to lose their jobs, things like that. He wanted to take care of the people. That was his branch in the Army, Adjutant General Corps. That the AG school was here, the finance school was here. We called it the schoolhouse, and it's appropriate that he still is schoolhouse. That was a schoolhouse, and but shortly after he began to maneuver and play poker, behind the scenes, there was one of the base closures, smaller base somewhere, and they called the commander called my husband to see if what he could do to, transition, the best thing that he could do. And my husband said, you must have the city support. And so that, I'm sorry.
Can you hold it for us? Would that work?
Sure, I might swing it.
No, don't. That's all right.
How does this look? So he told the commander there at that base, you must have city support. And he did. And I told Mayor Collier, I believe you're the 5th person that, since we were here, maybe I need somebody, that in every case, on both sides of politics, in every case, the mayors of Lawrence were supportive, and the state, the mayors, starting with Mayor Snyder. This chapel over here was one of the city's first gift to us as we started trying to save a few things, and it was my husband's desire to save as much of a military presence as we could. So I see a lot. Some of you know, I see one of his first secretaries. His first assignment here was at Defense Information School. Doris Combs is here. Most of you know her. She was has been a long friend, but it was help the people in the transition and keep the fort in a place that it could transition into something. Because there are a lot of sad cases of base closure in the United States today. So he did know that a street had been named for him after he retired. He came home one day, and he was a humble man, and he said, and it always when something good was happening to him, he'd say, guess what? Or you're not going to believe this. The day that he went and it was announced that the city government building was going to have his name on it, he came home and said, "You're not going to believe this." And so he was that way. And so he came home one day and he said, "Guess what? They're naming a street for me." And we said, "Oh, well, that's really nice." And so, we took pictures of it and everything. And so it was, it's been quite a while, but as I told the mayor it's appropriate that it's been this long so that we could remember him again and we could remember the start of the city. And all of our the people that we know that are still here, that were part of the military community was here, Colonel Dowden. I know I'll forget some people, but we're, as a military community, we're proud of what has happened to Lawrence community. We're all really, really pleased, because it would have been a sad case indeed to have come back to see buildings that were boarded up or that had been turned into something that was undesirable in cities rebuilding. So the Reuse Authority, one of my husband's colonel colleagues, Colonel Nix, his wife's not here today, he's since passed, he was with the Reuse Authority. I so am thankful for your remarks, because it so told the story of how my husband worked behind scenes. I hope I don't get too long here, but I do want to tell you one story, because when we were talking about how to come up with money, because one of the things that there was a protocol as to who got what, and but some of it you didn't get free. So we had a little issue. My husband's still serving. We're in Washington, D.C. He comes home, General's dime a dozen, He said, I got to get on the metro and go over to the Pentagon. He didn't have an escort. So he said, there was somebody over there that wanted a piece of the fort before the fort closed. And he had already said no. And the piece of the fort they wanted was money that was called morale support funds, and that had been paid for by the soldiers, military. So he called out of his meeting with the Army, the Association of the United States Army. We used to have one here, and we prayed before he left. We always said a prayer when he was going to come into some type of, this is going to happen. So we prayed before he left, and when he came back, his words were this: I'm 2 inches shorter, but I won. And he did. And so he not only did he have friends in the city, but he had friends in the state. The late Senator Lugar was a great support of getting the commissary and PX here. Some of you remember General Moorhead. We have so much history. I like to use the excuse that I'm old. I know a lot of stories. Some are behind the scenes. But I just want to thank you so much for your support and to tell you the city's doing a great job. Keep up the good work. But I didn't want to tell you what's appropriate about this street being named for him is some 50 years ago, next week, you can read the chronology of when we were here and when we were back, but we were at Carlisle, we were at Fort Leavenworth. My husband came in with one of those guess whats that was not good news. I was pregnant with our third son, and he was going back to Vietnam for the second time. And he said, you can go back to Indianapolis. And I said, okay. So he came back, and he did that. October the 9th, between the chapel there and the recruiting complex was a hospital. It was called the Cantonment Hospital. It was put together with old barracks. And that's where our third son, Edward, was born. And the day after, he'd been delivered, I guess I still have the Twix or whatever it was that the American Legion, the American Red Cross sent to tell him that Edward had been born. So they said to me, your husband's on the phone. And he was in Saigon. And at that time, phones were hooked to the wall. Yeah, I'm old. And so they put me a gurney or something, took me where there was a phone available. No phones in the room. And so they had patched a phone call from Saigon to Presidio to Fort Benjamin Harrison, to the hospital, and I talked to my husband when he was in Saigon. So this whole area is the military presence here is heartwarming to all of us, the military who were here, that it's just heartwarming to come on and see a presence of the military. All three of my sons went to Lawrence School. One graduated, my last son graduated from Lawrence Central. Two of my sons, my oldest son started the first grade at Indian Creek, if anybody remembers that. It was a school, Indian Creek, and he went to Craig, and he also went to Lawrence North. My second son, Indiana didn't have kindergarten then, so we went to private kindergarten in Lawrence, and then he started first grade at IPS, and then later on he went to Craig. And then my third son went to Mere Castle and different schools. All three of my sons, this is why why these things mean something to us. All three of my sons had to move their junior year. They graduated from a new school in their senior years. So military families pay a price. And Fort Harrison is important to us today because my husband served about 15 years of his 35 years at Fort Harrison, in and out, in and out. We never thought he would be a commander because non-combat arms generals do not command forts. So he was unique in that he was the first one, and so that was when our third son, the news was, guess what? We're going to Fort Benjamin Harrison. And so Edward graduated new school. And 10 years, no, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, we lived on Lawton Loop. We lived in little duplex, big duplex, and finally in one of the single dwellings. So we lived there. Our kids played on we had tanks there. They played on the tanks, they played on the polo fields. Some of the kids did things I don't know about yet. And some of the kids did things I don't tell about publicly. But it was our home, and it was home to all the military people here that were here. And there's history here, Mayor, and it truly is an historic city. Lawrence, that should be a part of their logo, I suppose. It is historic Fort Benjamin Harrison area, but it's also historic Lawrence due to the fact that there's all these memories for us. All of the military that served here, their family members, their kids, they all went to school. They have lifetime friends. Every time we came back, we met friends. Our church was off post. We were there except for times my husband commanded when we were here at the chapel. I don't want to keep you, but I've written this about 4 times trying to get it down. But the reason I want to tell you about how important this is to us as a military, in the military anywhere.
A little louder.
When we lived, those of us who lived on base and in the surrounding areas, because there wasn't always housing available, this was our home for that time. This Fort Benjamin Harrison, for those of you who served and we served and our families lived here, this is our history. Every time we came to Fort Benjamin Harrison, it was, we're going home. And we love Tennessee. I still have property in Tennessee. I love the hills. As soon as we built out here, I said, bring me in some rocks. I have the most rocks of anybody in my neighborhood. Big rocks. We started planting trees. One of the American Legion guys would come up here from Tennessee and he'd bring me river rocks out of the Chattanooga River. And they're all around my house. But I did want to address just one more thing about how my husband did things. And if he ever started doing this, he had a big thought coming, or you were in trouble. So, after my husband retired in 1995, Mr. Robert Noble, who is here today, he was the head of the National headquarters for the American Legion downtown, and another historic. Indianapolis has more memorials than Washington, D.C. I don't know. General Goodwin can tell you all about that. It's a historic, even though it's a small place, it's historic. So Mr. Spinogle offered my husband, at the suggestion of his wife, I think, because we wives are like that, that he should have a job. And so offered him a job as one of the executive directors of the American Legion. I was telling somebody earlier, his office was on the west side of town at then Park 100. I'm pretty sure as soon as Ronald was hired on at the American Legion, he started maneuvering. And now there's an American Legion. The American Legion owns a building here. That's where you get all your flags, buy your flags from the American Legion. So my husband, and it was a perfect fit for us all those years. So, and you know, I can't talk about all the friends, you know, as I'm looking around and see the friends, see the PX people, and that were here when the closure was beginning to happen. All the civilians and the military all worked together to make the transition. The Reuse Authority is doing a great job, and most of the things that General Goodwin said. I mean, I have to say, you know, my husband was humble, but despite his accent, I mean, he was an educated man. He got his MBA at Butler University. The Army sent him that as a consolation to the fact that he was going back to Vietnam for the second time when others hadn't been. And I was upset about it. And so as soon as they got my husband actually was in Washington, D.C. looking. We had orders to Washington, D.C. when they called to change his orders. And we had to do no cell phones or anything. I was crying by the time I got hold of him. And so as a consolation, you know, it's like, I'm going back to Indianapolis. And he had a friend in government officer's assignment thing, said, we'll let you go to school to finish your MBA. So it's just a perfect fit for all. And I just say all of this, I know I'm rambling, to tell you how important it is to us as a military community to see the good work that the city has done. And I'm going to tell you a few things that we as a city that people didn't know about. See, Ronald's former provost marshal here. We have, and Colonel Dowden was his finance, the head finance and school. Is that right? Okay. The reason that all this means to us. Fort Benjamin Harrison, at the many times here's what we had at Fort Benjamin Harrison. We had a gas station, a grocery store, a little Walmart. We had 3 chapels. We had a bowling alley. We had a theater. We had a service club. We had a fire department. We had a dental office. We had a hospital. We were a little jewel that a lot of people didn't know about, and that's why we always tried to come back. Because we loved the Midwest, and so a lot of people just didn't know about that. And the city will say they got a great asset, and then the Reuse Authority has done a great job. I won't go on, but because I know we're going to be treated here with a song, but I just want to thank you again for being here today, and thank you for starting with the escort this morning, and all my friends and my neighbors, and friends of the community in the city and the state. I'm trying to think if I left anybody out, but he had so many people helping him. I'm sure I did, and he didn't talk about everything. Some might remember if you were here, he always had a friend in Washington, D.C., Mr. Johnson. And he'd say, I'm going to call Mr. Johnson, and they would help do things for the city. But the city's just been great, and I thank you so much for it. God bless America. Pray for America and our cities.
We're getting a standing
May I say just one more thing? I'm not saying it. I'm going to read what my husband's last paragraph was on the blue book, if any of you have one of these. In his foreword to this book that was printed when we knew we were going to close, my husband wrote, I cannot begin to count the number of great Americans who have retained fond memories of this place since the first soldiers marched through its gates. This book is about them. It is also about the enduring commitment to our nation and Fort Benjamin Harrison's part in securing its future. My husband's words.
One more. We're getting close to the unveiling here, but I wanted to ask up here the guy that was at least half responsible for what happened today, Scott, and his ideas. So, Scott, if you'll come up and give us a little bit of information about the memorial that we're about to unveil.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start, first of all, by thanking Ms. Brooks and the whole Brooks family for coming out here and attending this dedication today. It's certainly our great pleasure to honor a man who served his country with integrity and distinction, and he lived and exemplified the ideals and the obligations of duty, honor, and country. So that means a lot. I come from a military family myself, and to General Goodwin's point, my mom and dad still shop out here at the PX, so that was an important thing. A project like this gets accomplished by teamwork and the individual efforts of many under skillful leadership. So I'd like to start first by thanking Mayor Collier for conceiving this project and for his leadership guiding the team through the process of getting this project done. So I'm going to take a few moments to recognize several individuals. If I've overlooked anyone, I certainly apologize for that, and just everybody know that the efforts of everyone involved were tremendously appreciated. So in preparing for this, lots of things had to happen. One of the first things that happened is our city engineer, Sheree Venegopolin, got Brooks Boulevard spruced up, some drainage improvements, some cleanup, and got the street repaved, so we thank him for that. Our street department director, Jim Hennigan, and his foreman, John Eastridge, who should be here somewhere. There he is over there. These two guys were like instrumental in preparing this area, the monument pedestal, mounting the plaque, and a host of other things. One of the neat things I think about this monument that we made, and Jim and his guys and a lot of our crew, just from the utility as well as DPW, we took these bricks from the water plant that is being rebuilt here down on 59th Street, and we thought that would be a fitting base for the monument to build to General Brooks, as it was an integral part of the fort. I'd also like to thank from the mayor's office, Mary Jo Rothenbush, right there, Jeff Vest. These two were indispensable in planning and coordinating everything about this event. The whole planning team, which a lot of people I don't even know the names of everybody who was on there, but their efforts are greatly appreciated. Daniel Byer and Jared Hooten, our public information specialists, who put together social media postings, are taking care of photography and other valuable input on this project. Eric Martin in our Parks Department for assisting with the setup for today's event. And I'd also like to especially thank Mr. Jesse Tremaine, owner of Tremaine Tile, and Miss Monica McNeely, who I don't think is here today, but they donated and prepared the granite slab that the plaque is mounted on, and donated that and put up with a lot of questions and last minute what ifs by me. There's Mr. Tremaine right there, if you'll hold up your hand, Jesse. And so we really want to thank them. That was really greatly appreciated, and we're so thankful that they decided to be a part of this. And then I also want to thank Mr. Brian Eastridge with Reese Contracting, who did the roadway improvements here with the drainage and getting all this prepared, and also in preparing the actual monument. with together with a mason, Gary Savage, who actually put the monument together. So all these people, under the skillful leadership of Mayor Collier, came together in a spirit of community involvement and cooperation in order to make this happen and to render this honor to a man so richly deserving of the recognition. Inside the monument is actually a time capsule too, and inside of the capsule there is a challenge coin from Major General Brooks, which was donated by his wife Drusilla. There is also a medal in recognition of those who served Vietnam 1959 to 1975. In 1992, Major General Brooks presented these medallions at Firebase Indy to Vietnam veterans to thank them for their service and to welcome them home. This was donated by Mr. Tony Geely, another one of our fine city employees there. And then there's a safety patch donated by Brigadier General J. Stuart Goodwin, USA Air Force, retired Air Force. Yep. Director of Safety and Occupational Division, Base Closure Officer, 1975 to 1996. And then there's also a copy of the Lawrence Journal Centennial Edition dating from June 1950. And then also the funeral program for Major General Brooks from March 22nd, 2018. So thank you everyone for participating and all the help and efforts that everybody put together to make this happen. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to talk from here, use my teacher voice, but I think you'll be very proud. I know I'm very proud of the efforts for this memorial. Mrs. Brooks has already seen it. She got an early view of it. But Scott will take it back now. It only seems appropriate that we should be kind of dismissed with one of the most beautiful singing voices that I know here in central Indiana. But Grace will soon sing for us, America the Beautiful. And go on, Grace.
Y'all can sing along with me if you like. God bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my own sweet home. God bless America, my own sweet home.
I wasn't lying. She's pretty good, isn't she? Real quickly,
We just want to recognize our special thanks to
we'll do that later. Real quickly, I want to let you all know, I say this often, but there are some days when it's awfully fun to be a mayor. Today was one of those days. So thank all of you for your attention here today, and we're dismissed.